Ben Hogan was a fantastic champion from the middle of the last century who wrote probably the most iconic golf book called the 5 Lessons, the Modern Fundamentals of the Game. Most people in my profession use it as their primary resource, and in fact most of the people that we're teaching have referred to it at one point during their development as a golfer. In his first chapter he talks about the grip, and I'd like to say a little something about that. One of the things he did at the end of that chapter was to describe a couple of personal adjustments that he made. I think that they're quite meaningful. He was talking about the long thumb. Now, this refers to the left hand. Traditionally, and certainly as he began, he had the thumb extended quite far down the club, and he thought that that made the club a little hard to control at the top of the swing. It made the swing a little long and floppy. So he concluded that it was necessary to shorten the thumb. A short thumb would be to pull it a half an inch farther up the shaft. That gave him more security here. He thought that was beneficial. The other, what he called personal modification, was that he brought that thumb from what is considered the conventional position of slightly to the right of center of the top of the club. He moved it a half an inch to the left. Now that's quite a lot of adjustment for a thumb. And that half-inch move to the left, I think, had more effect than even he mentioned in his book. His motivation was to stop from hooking the ball. It's characteristic of a lot of really good golfers that if they go wrong, they hook the ball, which is a ball that flies violently and inconveniently into the left trees. It plagued him in his early years. Subsequently, apparently, Gary Player, a couple of generations later. And he thought that by moving that left thumb to the left, it would make him less likely to hook. Now, one of my lessons from 20 years ago, I called scroll hook. It pointed out that somebody, particularly if they had large hands, if they gripped in the fingers, which is commonly recommended to be a good way to go, and certainly shows up in Ben Hogan's book, that when you squeeze the club to apply the kind of pressure that the swing requires, something that Ben Hogan suggested happened at the beginning of the swing, that in fact it would be possible for the club to actually close just because you squeeze the club. I call it scroll hook. So as you close the fingers to acquire the strength needed to form the swing, it actually would inadvertently close the club face. I've learned that one, you should check that ahead of time and apply the kind of force that you think sets the club correctly. If you're hooking the ball, obviously check that. The other thing, reference to Ben Hogan, is that by bringing his left thumb a half an inch to the left, almost left of center, although he described it as down the middle, it actually engaged these 3 fingers in a new way. He, in his book, advocated that the left hand 3 fingers other than the index finger be the ones where the greatest amount of effort is used to control the club. You'll notice that if you move your thumb to the left and close the hand, that the dynamic and the architecture that that forms is quite interesting. It emphasizes the 3 fingers which he preferred, but it also closes up the forefinger in a way that I think is meaningful and wasn't mentioned in his book. So bringing the thumb to the left tenses up the hand in a way that does indeed get more control here at the top of the swing, and also makes the picture of the back of the left hand very reminiscent of, interestingly, the wonderful drawing of the left wrist that Tony Ravielli did for that book. I don't think that that position that he demonstrated to be his favorite one, Ben Hogan, can be achieved without going through that process. I find it also to be much more controlled at the end of the backswing, and it makes me more consistent going through the ball. Thank you.